Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausam Pereira. About 15,000 Indians could fly back home from all across the world, with a lion's share of them coming from the Gulf in the first week of repatriation flights that start from Thursday. The number will be much more as Indians are being brought back on naval ships too. In the first week of the biggest ever homecoming exercise undertaken by any country for its citizens, India plans to operate 64 flights from places like UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Singapore, Malaysia, the UK, USA, Philippines, and Bangladesh. Of the 64 flights planned from May 7th to 14th, 26 will be from the Gulf region, 17 from Southeast Asia, and 7 each from the USA, UK, and Bangladesh. About 15,000 Indians are expected to return back on these flights. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the great homecoming. Joining me on the program today are Anil Trigunayat, former ambassador, Rajendra Harshe, foreign affairs expert, and Alok Bansal, director, India Foundation. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Professor, let me start the program with you. Let's first try and understand the magnitude of this exercise and what all of this really means.
I think that exercise of this magnitude is unprecedented. I remember in 1990, when war took place between Kuwait and Iraq, 170,000 Indians came by Indian Airlines, and that was a very major operation. But now, this time, in the UAE itself, 2 lakh Indian citizens have registered that they would like to return to India. So the exercise is absolutely massive. And these 7 days will tell us how much more work has to be done in this particular area. The second part that is very difficult to manage is we are going through COVID crisis, COVID-19. This has no cure. And as they come here, how will we manage them? How will we quarantine them for 14 days? Which hospitals, which private places they will be quarantined? How we'll take care to see that they don't infect others? Suppose we kind of work out a situation where COVID negatives are only allowed first. Can it be possible? Can it be possible that there can be medical test and medical screening before they board the flight? All these things will have to be worked out because India so far has handled this crisis reasonably well. But because of the influx of people in different airports, Delhi, Bombay, and different states like Kerala, Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, all over from Southeast Asia, West Asia, this is going to be a tough challenge for us to manage. I think basically our government's capacity to coordinate between Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Civil Aviation, between center and different state governments is going to be tested. So are going to be our health systems, our corona warriors among doctors, nurses, and ward boys. Everybody is going to be tested in this. But I'm sure with consistent efforts and also coordination, we'll be able to reduce the tension. The other problems which relate to economy of this country are going to be much more grave, and we'll have to think them over and also handle them. But they are not easy to handle. They don't have magic wand solutions, because many of them who are coming here, are they going to lose their job? Are they going to get their jobs here? And so many semi-skilled workforce is going to come into India. We have abundant of them in this country who are perhaps seeking a job. So this is going to be another very major challenge once they return back to India. So this is the thing I feel initially.
All right. Talking about challenges, of course, and the economy will come to a little later in the program. Ambassador, talking about challenges, India has got a lot of experience really in repatriating its citizens. It has done so very successfully in the recent past, and like the professor also mentioned, during the Gulf War in the 90s. But what is going to be the most challenging aspect of this mammoth exercise that we are going to witness?
Well, what I feel is that we have adequate experience and have successfully evacuated very large number of people. Now, getting them, as you know, the embassies have already started registering. Some of the websites also crashed because of the rush. But in certain places, it's not that much. For example, in Qatar, we only have 40,000 registrations. There has been a very clear guideline in the first phase There will be people who are senior citizens, stranded Indians, distressed Indians, and the people who need medical attention urgently. So those are the ones who are going to be evacuated in the first phase. Where 50,000 is nothing when we are talking or looking at a total number of about 9 million people in the Gulf. Now, almost one third are likely to lose their jobs. That is, or are going to work at much lesser salaries. I know people who are earning $60,000-$70,000 a month are now have to take a 50% salary cut. But think about the people whose salary is hardly $300-$400, and they lose their jobs. Now, once they come here, they're going to have a major problem. The biggest challenge is not on that side, because I think it is easier to do it. We also have some medical teams in some countries. We have also helped them how to train them. But screening is with that simple thermometer. Screening is not enough. Today, the more cases are asymptomatic, and therefore they are going to blow out. So that is going to have a major impact on the Indian conditions and the growth of the virus-infected people in India. That is going to be a major problem. So I believe that this will also, since we are going to be selective in getting people out, I feel that there is going to be a greater concern among a lot of people, because especially the labor class, they don't understand very much, and they are really in a very stressed situation there. Including many of the big people as well. I mean, some of them, their companies are completely shut down. They don't have any means to survive there also, even if they had been good. So it is going to have a multi-pronged impact on these people. Although logistically, we may be able to pull it off, and I'm sure we will pull it off because we know how to do it. We have done it. But once they come here, that is where the real challenge will begin for the people. I'm not looking at in a short term or even in a medium term the return of these people who will be coming. Suppose we get 4 to 5 lakhs people. According to NORCA, the Kerala agency, they have already started preparing for 5 lakh people. Now, you must see that the people there get used to a certain kind of a lifestyle, a certain amount of savings. 90% of their money they save, especially in the blue-collar laborers, and they send back to India. Now, 10% of our total remittances total remittances only from the Gulf account for almost the 10% of the Indian foreign exchange reserves. Now, you can imagine that that is also going to be very badly impacted. And on top of it, you have to rehabilitate those people. You have to try to get them retrain, re-employ, or do something for them. That is extremely important, I think. And so there are going to be multiple challenges, but I see more challenges on this end of the spectrum.
Okay, we'll talk about remittances and the kind of issues that you have raised in our second round ahead in the program. But Captain Bansal, of course, we've had a lot of experience really in bringing back people in the recent past, and we've done so successfully. I mentioned that earlier as well. But this is very different from what we've done in the past, isn't it? Because, here you have a medical problem at hand. You have to ensure that those who are coming in are properly screened. A lot of checks need to be done.
There are a lot of differences between what we have done in the past and what we are going to do this time. Because firstly, because of the pandemic, there is a problem of social distancing. Now, if you're bringing them in aircraft, you're bringing them in naval ships, and as Ambassador Trigunayat said, just thermal screening won't do. You don't have the capacity to take everybody's nasal swab or something and test him. So people who are going to come would include asymptomatic carriers. Now, if there are asymptomatic carriers, how do you maintain social distancing? When you have numbers as huge as 2 lakhs coming from UAE itself, how do you get them? If you are getting them by aircraft, that means you will have to reduce the capacity if you want to maintain some sort of social distancing. That's not feasible. The problem this time is that not only are we facing an economic crunch, the country from where they are coming also are facing an economic crunch. UAE also, the companies have closed up, the people are unemployed. The Saudi Arabia, the companies are closing down. Oil prices have hit rock bottom. The Middle Eastern economy might go into a tailspin for a long time to come. I don't know when they would revive. Because if oil prices remain this, because even after COVID-19 comes under certain amount of control, it will take time before the demand actually picks up. Because even after that problem gets over, I'm not going to be gallivanting around as I used to probably earlier. I would probably restrict myself to office, home. With that sort of a movement, that sort of fear, the demand for fuel, demand for hydrocarbons is going to be less. And if the demand for hydrocarbons remains subdued, these economies are not going to get up. And as Ambassador said, more than 50% of the remittances for India used to come from this place. And India is the largest recipient of global remittances for so many years. So for us, it's going to be a double whammy. Firstly, we'll have to accommodate these people. Where do they take them? Because these people are earning disproportionately larger remunerations while they are in Gulf. Once they come back to India with their level of skill set, they won't get that sort of remuneration in India, because menial jobs, blue-collar jobs don't fetch you that sort of remuneration. And even in India, you have factories, etc. All economic activity has come to a standstill. So there is a huge problem. Of course, what is important is that the government of India at this crucial juncture has decided that it has a responsibility to get its citizens back. It has not really looked after its economic well-being, economic interests. There are many other countries who had left people behind. We saw what happened in the case of Pakistan, which did not get its students from Wuhan. They kept crying, saying that Indians are going back, Bangladeshis are going back, but we are stuck here. We brought our students back at that time. Now we are trying to get these citizens back. They didn't want to come earlier. They registered subsequently when the companies started closing up and the UAE started saying that those not employed should actually go back. So we have started, and that's why we find that a large chunk of these people are in UAE, which have to be brought out. So This is a huge mammoth exercise, mammoth challenges. But I think the first task is to get them back safely, quarantine them, ensure that they reach their homes. Then we will look at the second phase. That's what is the economic impact? How do we rehabilitate them? What do we do about employing them again? How do they go back if they want to go back? If at all they would have to go back. All those questions will come later. First is to get them. And this process starts, I think, from 7th May. This will be a huge, huge exercise. This will be probably the largest exercise of this kind in the human history.
No Indian left behind is what Captain Bansal is suggesting, and that's the most important thing. All other aspects can be looked at a later time. Professor, this sends out a strong message to expatriates, to the Indian community, to the Indian diaspora as well, doesn't it, as a whole? It sends out a good message that, the Americans have done that for several decades in the past, and we've seen that happening. Now, India too is saying that no Indian is going to be left behind. India is going to stand for every Indian.
Very true. It sends out a very good message. I was thinking I could add only one footnote to what Alok Bansalji was saying. And that is, so many Indians who have jobs in the United States are also stranded here. And they also want to go back to United States to resume their job, and something to the tune of $900,000 they're collecting to see that they're also flown back to United States. And how that gets operated is a different question, but both ways the reality is there. I think it does send, as you say, a very strong signal that we are allowing all Indians to come back, welcoming them. And after they come back, we'll also try to see that they're rehabilitated properly. And it is here that the real problem comes up, because as far as such operations are concerned, as Ambassador was saying, we are fairly experienced. We have transported many people like this. And this time, all the aircrafts as well as ships are involved in getting them back. So getting them back will never be such a difficult task. I think the side effect of it is an enormous loss of remittances and income and revenue that Indian government is getting. And that was very, very substantial, because so far the oil prices in the world market have been doing well. And that advantage also they're getting good salaries, they're remitting good amount of money. All those remittances now will go from West Asia, maybe Southeast Asia also we are getting remittances, they will go. And certain states like Kerala, which were entirely dependent, or the economy was dependent on this expatriate money, that they will suffer much more. Similarly, I also feel that all over the country, I think whenever they're spread, already there is a large pool of unemployed. And this particular reality, how kind of government manages, how our corporate world manages, how our civil society organization manages, this is going to be a real problem, because unemployment in India is now 27%, which is very high after 45 years, and it is going to be even higher. And what kind of jobs we'll kind of give them, because such people, semi-skilled and otherwise, they're abundant in India's market. And similarly, kinds of new technologies which are disruptive, which are coming, they don't require such manpower. We actually require intensive manpower to be kind of deployed to see the factories work, that industries kickstart, agriculture kickstart, or any other area, right from plumber to an electrician. Everywhere we require manpower. And how we are going to work out this equation, how we are going to kind of facilitate this process, and how entrepreneurial we are in kind of looking ahead in terms of several opportunities. The job creation is a very major problem. Giving job to everybody, including the people who are right here, because we are 125, 130 crore people here. Youngest population is still here. And if the dividend or demographic dividend, if we don't realize now, by 2040, we will be aging nation. So these are the 20 years where everybody has to be properly used. And how we work out a policy plan, and for that I personally feel it's an emergency of its own kind, where a government has to step out and get as many experts and their views, as many kind of ideas, so that in a very comprehensive plan and document is worked out to see how we'll take every step. And that can be possible because perhaps, we are kind of in a crisis mode, and India is, I have already said it in your television channel only, when we are in crisis mode, we do quite well. In 1991, we came out. In 2008, we came out. And this also India is more likely to face. When normal conditions are there, Indians don't do as well as they should. That's how we are.
Okay. All right. So extraordinary circumstances bring out the best in us is what the professor is suggesting. Let's talk about another aspect, Ambassador. What does it say about the host countries from where all the Indians are coming back? And what does it mean for the economy as a whole, as far as the world is concerned?
There are two aspects to this, Frank. One is that India has managed the COVID-19 crisis rather well compared to the rest of the world. And that has gone around all over the world. And for the Indians who are living in the Middle East, the situation there, as far as COVID is concerned, is very, very dangerous. The spread is too much. These people, most of the blue-collar workers live in something called kafala system. So they are very crowded places. There is no social distancing. They are not even having proper tests or checks, and they are not really the priority in many ways, I would say. So therefore, as you know, that the UAE sometime back asked countries to take back their expats. Otherwise, they even threatened in a very covert manner that they will review the quota system for the countries which don't take back their people. Now, as you know, in those countries, if you lose a job, you lose your status, you need to leave. There is nothing else. And that is a distress situation. A large number of people are increasingly becoming jobless. There is going to be a complete churn in the Middle East as far as the way the business or the growth models will happen. Their sovereign wealth funds are also taking a very big hit. So today, and the oil, as everybody has said, the oil prices are going low, and they are not going to unlikely to go up to 39, 40 by, let us say, next year, middle of next year. But if that is the situation, then we are looking at a very, very dire situation in these countries. And they are 40, 50,000 people in the small countries are waiting to be tested. So those who have the symptoms also are unable to get tested, treatment apart. So, but they have been nice enough that they are trying to anybody who's COVID positive, they're being treated freely. They have extended their visas, waived the fees or whatever it is, because they're very stringent. Overstay in those countries really is very expensive to get out of. That all has been waived. Our embassies, in the meantime, as I must say, have under the Indian Community Welfare Fund or in collaboration with the Indian associations, have tried to provide the maximum possible assistance to them. In addition, the Indian government, as you know, the Prime Minister himself spoke to all the leaders of the Gulf. While we talked to them about providing assistance, we sought assurances that Indian nationals will be provided completely, their welfare will be looked after. But whatever these people may say at the leadership level, at the end of the day, your own people are your own people. And that precisely applies to India. And that is why we are trying to get them back to as many as possible. You know, earlier cases, I evacuated people from Libya. And I know it that many of the people refused to come. They said, if we have to die, we might as well die getting more money, because Gaddafi increased the salaries by 3 to 5 times of the people, and many Indians, more than 3,000, refused to come back. Our ships have to come with 7, 8 people. Can you imagine? I mean, that kind of situation. But today the situation is between life and job and the health. But once your life is saved, you will only be looking at your job security or getting some kind of funding, because these people's savings generally get invested mostly in their big houses. If you go to Kerala, I mean, you know it, that everybody builds lovely, beautiful white houses, and they go around in the dhotis and all that. But then once this stops, you can imagine the kind of problems they are going to face. So I have these economies, they are okay when they're running good. And it is same applies to the US. I mean, they are unable to handle. I mean, I personally feel that the biggest losers in this whole bargain of COVID are the Western countries. They have proved to be the paper tigers. Their health systems have collapsed. Their planning have collapsed. They have really no systems in place. That's what one sees, one has seen it. Compared to that, India has very calibrated manner. I know that we have the bigger things here, bigger challenges are yet to come. Even in terms of the numbers, we are beginning to test heavily now and seeing the jump in numbers. But despite that, with 1.3 billion people, you can imagine, I mean, whatever we are doing, I think we are doing good. And the best part is that a large number of Indians are adhering to the guidelines and the instructions of the government and saving themselves. So today it's life, employment, and we have some challenges. And now, as was mentioned by my other friends, that we are already having large number of Indians going within India, internal migration in the country itself. They are a bigger challenge. They are also the COVID carriers. You have additional COVID carriers. So the real fight is going to begin hereafter.
Okay.
And the economies of India and economies of all the countries are going to take very big hit. Many people refuse to agree that it is going to be in the negative or something. India may be 0.8% growth or whatever it is that everybody is saying, but that is nothing for us. We need money to inject into the industry today. So it's a challenge on multiple fronts, because even if you open the lockdown, the industry doesn't have money. Those 63 million SMEs, they are really, they have no funds.
Multiple challenges and they all need to be addressed. Multiple challenges and they all need to be addressed is what the panelists are suggesting. Captain Bansal, let me bring you in now. So, we're talking about the United States. Of course, we spoke about West Asia. UAE alone has over 2 lakh people who want to return. Several of them have registered with the embassy already. But are you surprised with the numbers from the United States? I mean, there's quite a large chunk that wants to return from the US as well.
See, firstly, US is the country which has actually collapsed, where actually the healthcare is actually the worst. You look at it, 12 lakh people affected. It's a huge, huge number. The number of deaths also are very huge. Large number of Americans are unemployed today because large number of factories, companies are actually closed down. Now, these Indians who were there on different visas actually earning, their earnings have stopped. What are they going to do there? In a country where people are not adhering to the norms even today. There is actually a president who's asking people to come out and violate the lockdowns in various states. So in that sort of a country, those people are actually extremely paranoid. They are concerned. So they want to get back, because when you are faced with problem, you want to shift to a familiar surrounding. You want the proximity of your near and dear ones. And that's one of the reasons why these people want to get back. So if they are getting a chance, if they are not earning anything in US, why stay there? Because I tend to agree completely with Ambassador Trigunaya that in days to come, you are going to see a severe bad impact on the Western economies, most of which are going to crumble for some time. It will be actually many years before they can actually revive. So there is no chance. If they are actually unemployed, there is no chance of getting back a job. So if they are not looking for a job in near future, they might as well come back home, curtail their expenditures, because cost of living also in the United States is pretty high. So it's better that they come back to India. And this is going to be the state. But the advantage in the case of America is that the people who will be coming are relatively better off. Please understand, Indian diaspora in US is the richest. So even those people who are coming off are relatively better off. They're not hand to mouth. So they are not the ones who are going to be starving once they come back. They would have had, fortunately, at least some amount of saving to last them for a few months. Their status may come down. The problem with the Middle Eastern diaspora which is going to come is that most of them are blue-collared. And even if they have saved large amount of money, their ability to fit into the India get commensurate jobs which are as paying as they were in Middle East is virtually impossible. So the government of India is trying to do something. I think there is a very interesting statement which has come that the companies which are relocating from China, the government has said we have twice the land mass of Luxembourg available for them to come and invest here. It's a very, very good initiative. But the point is that we have to curtail the bureaucratic red tape. We have extremely good policies which actually flounder because of this bureaucratic red tape. We have to do something. The government really wants to attract. There should be a single window clearance system with a political head heading it. You have to eliminate the bureaucratic interference as much as is feasible so that everybody can get together and do this. That is very, very important, and that has to come up. Once that comes up, I'm sure, as Professor Harshay said, that in times of crisis, we have given a very extremely good account of ourselves. The first priority is to get our people back. Just like the Prime Minister said, Jaan hai, jahan hai. So let's first save the lives, then we'll look at what is to be done. We can do a lot of things subsequently, but the first requirement is to get these people back, and that will require a huge, huge effort.
Okay, time to get quick closing comments from all my guests. I've got 2 minutes left on the program, so I'm going to ask you to be brief in 30 seconds each, the best way forward, starting first with you, Professor.
I think, first is, let the people come back. Second is we try to kind of work out how many ways we can get investments, invite companies which are willing to relocate in India, stimulate the jobs. So we have to manage two things. One is kickstart the economy and leave space for the economy. At the same time, continue your fight with Corona. Both have to be managed now, otherwise it will not be working. So economy, let it kickstart, and many ways we can work towards it. And fight with Corona will continue, and that is collective fight, world's fight, India's fight. That's how we can go ahead.
Right, very, very well put. All right, Ambassador.
Well, I would just say protect people, protect economy, and protect the markets. That's the mantra, difficult to achieve, but we need to work on it.
Absolutely. All right. And Captain Bansal, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
As I said, protection of life is the first primary responsibility of the state, and that must be adhered to. Once we have saved the people, then we have to look at generating demand, kick-starting the economy. One of the advantages is that since we are getting such large number of people back from UAE, these countries, when the economy revives, should be in a position to prioritize our people to get back to their countries, especially when blue-collared workers are concerned. As far as Western countries are concerned, I think it's going to be a long haul before you can get that sort of job opening avenues available in US and other European countries. It will be a long, long haul because the numbers at this stage are mind-boggling as far as US and European countries are concerned. So I really feel that we have to do something by which we generate employment within India itself. That at this point itself is going to be very difficult because most of the companies have shut down. But I think this phased system of opening up is the best system, where we isolate those areas where there are problems, and those green districts, we kickstart the economic activity so that another factor and another opportunity that we must take for this time is that we need to decongest our urban conglomerate. We are too concentrated in Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, Bangalore. We need to shift our production houses outside. We need to create hundreds of new urban conglomerates, planned urban conglomerates. We need new cities. That's a requirement so that we don't have people living in such close proximity in Dharavi and various slums in Delhi and Bombay. That needs to be remediated. I think in this crisis, we need to look at opportunity as far as our urban planning is concerned.
All right. With that, it's a wrap then on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is the road ahead certainly seems to be extremely challenging, but every Indian is important and we need to save lives first. Then we can look at everything else, is what the panelists are suggesting. We need to focus on our domestic economy and everything else will fall in place. It's not going to be easy, but it's something that we have to work together, and we have to cooperate and coordinate and take this fight forward. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.